For most of the 20th century, refugees were seen as a human problem to offer people the physical protection that they needed, as well as housing and shelter, and some long-term future in a new place, a place of safety. But we began to see a new perception of refugees as representing a security threat. There wasn't that detachment that refugees were simply and only victims of a conflict, that they had left that behind them when they came to a new place. My name is Chris McDowell. I'm a reader in international political anthropology in the Department of International Politics. My research is on forced migration, so I look at the displacement of populations for a range of reasons. It might be because of conflict, environmental change, or decisions that governments take to move populations around for economic or development purposes. And this might include large-scale infrastructure projects such as dams and roads and bridges, which require the acquisition of land from people who live on that area of land that's going to be developed, and they are relocated to a new place. I was lucky enough to be commissioned to lead an 18-month research project which effectively did an evaluation of the UK government's resettlement programme for Syrian refugees. I interviewed around 160 resettled Syrian refugees across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. What was most important that came out of this research was that in order for Syrian refugees to feel that they had a long-term vision on the UK, it was necessary for them to have a legal status which gave them that sense of belonging and permanence. The pathways to integration would be made much simpler if they had some guarantee that they were going to remain in the UK, that this was going to be their home from now on. As a result of working with the UN, being able to hold high-level meetings with the Home Office, I was able to get that point of view across. The research contributed to a change of policy by the UK government to grant Syrian refugees permanent refugee status, which is a pathway to citizenship in the UK. And I'm delighted that the UK government made that change, because it not only affected Syrian refugees, but then goes on to affect other refugees who are resettled in the UK from other conflicts around the world. The role of research is really in that it enables those who are able to influence people's lives to understand what it is that creates disadvantage and harm. And I first started my research in the immediate post-apartheid era in South Africa, where I had the opportunity to do research among women's groups in the townships around Cape Town. I was just impressed by the resilience of people who live under these conditions, and it developed into a thirst on my part to try and better understand what the human impacts are and how people overcome the negative impacts of migration and displacement. If it is the case that the UK government is looking to move refugee policy in a more restrictive direction, I don't think that that is in response to pressure from the British public. And I'm optimistic that the way in which European countries in particular responded to what has occurred in Ukraine may indicate that we're turning a corner. The UK government has introduced a Home for Ukrainians policy, which has been signed up to by 200,000 people just a few days after the initiative was launched. It suggests that there is considerable public support for Britain continuing to host potentially large numbers of refugees. And if we're beginning to return to that kind of situation, relinking refugees to ordinary citizens, then I think there are some positives in that.